Daniel chapter 8, verse number 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar. Now, in case you don't remember, Daniel chapter 8 is jumping back in time now because chapter 6 was about the Persian reign. And so now Daniel is not written necessarily in chronological order, but he tells you who's the king so you know what time frame you're talking about. This was the last king of Babylon. And while he was king of Babylon, he's having a big drunken party in the palace and called for all the golden vessels from the temple to be brought in. God said, that's it, you're done, we're out of here. Anybody know what happened? We covered that the other night. Handwriting on the wall, mine altikal upharsin, you are done, bud, you're out of here. And he died that night, okay? But so we're skipping back in time a little bit to Belshazzar, to the guy who saw the handwriting on the wall. A vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel. So in my part 3 of my book, What on Earth is About to Happen, for heaven's sake, I have a whole section on Daniel's visions. This is one of them. What did Daniel see? What is God trying to teach him? Because that is essential for the future. And on the chart, it's right here. Nick, if you can come over here. And part 1 of my video series is about the creation. What was that like? And that turned out to be 5 DVDs. Part 2 is about the flood. Steve is almost done with that. And that's going to be, we don't know yet, do we? 3 DVDs probably, all about Noah's flood. Where'd the water come from? What did it do? Where'd it go? Part 3 now, which we're doing here, is about Daniel's prophecies, his amazing visions. This is one of them. So, Daniel chapter 8. A vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. So he had a vision before this. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, when I saw, that I was at Shushan in the palace. Now, the capital of Babylon was Babylon. Shushan was one of the cities they had conquered. Later, Shushan shows up again as the capital of Persia. So he was in Shushan the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in a vision I was by the river Ulai. So here is Babylon. Today it's Iraq. Across the border is Iran, and they hate each other. But they hate us worse, okay? But they hate each other. And here is the river Ulai, which runs down into near Kuwait, where we had the big Kuwait war, you know, when was that, 91? 91, 2, 3, yeah. So Shushan the palace is apparently an auxiliary palace they have. They probably had provinces all over and capitals in each province. Okay. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood a man, he stood before the river, a ram, which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. A ram would be a male goat, okay? I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward. Notice, not eastward, that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came up from the west, on the face of the whole ground, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Now, most people interpret this to mean, and I'll tell you what you're going to see and then show you, and I agree with its standard interpretation. All through history they have taught that the ram with 2 horns is the kingdom of Media Persia. They're the ones that conquered Babylon, the Medes and the Persians. We saw that a couple chapters ago, and they had 2 different kings, and one was higher than the other, Medes and the Persians. And then the goat that came out, the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward, no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, and he did according to his will and became great. This would be the Persian Empire. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west. This is going to be Alexander the Great, comes charging out of Greece. Now he had a small army. Every time, most of the battles he fought, he was greatly outnumbered. So his strategy was charge. There was a great Confederate general. That was his philosophy. As soon as you see the enemy, attack. Bedford Forrest or Forrest Bedford, Nathan Bedford Forrest, I forget. I read a book about him from Memphis area or something like that. He's the one that started the Ku Klux Klan after the war, okay? But he did it actually for a different reason than they're using it for now. But he was always outnumbered and almost always won. He'd say, as soon as they see the enemy, charge! Sarge, we're not ready. Neither are they. Charge. Okay? And it startled them so bad, they took off running. So Alexander the Great used this philosophy, attack. And he with a smaller army, that's why I think it says his feet and he touched not the ground. He went so fast, it looked like he's just flying over the ground to get there. It's kind of the symbolism. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes, probably representing Alexander the Great. And he came to the ram that had two horns, which would be the Persians, and had two kings, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran into him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him. That means he was angry. And smote the ram, and brake his two horns. This would be the symbolism of he killed the two kings, or took them out of power. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. So he lost to Alexander the Great. And we know historically that's what happened. The Persians got conquered by the Alexander the Great, the Greeks, okay? Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. So this he-goat, Alexander the Great, the Greeks, waxed great. He became a great leader and died at age 30. Oh, wow. The great horn was broken. And for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. And everybody knows historically, Alexander's huge kingdom was divided up between his four generals. The four top generals each took a section, and the kingdom broke up into four regions. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great, toward the south, toward the east, and toward the pleasant land, probably toward Israel. And most people think this gets into the story of Cleopatra and the Egyptian, the Egyptian section of the kingdom. You can study this in a history book, but here's where the people differ on what happened after that. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven. And it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground. So obviously this is not an earthly king now. This is talking about a satanically motivated person, because have you ever seen any king in the world cast down stars to the ground? Or go to the host of heaven? We can't do that. We can't get there. And he stamped upon them. So this now has become, I think, a satanic, probably the devil. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away. Now, I believed for a long time, I no longer believe it, but I used to believe that this is talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, who in about 168 BC, I think, conquered Israel. He had gotten beaten in Egypt, and he felt kind of bad, so on his way back home, he stopped off and conquered Israel, and stopped the daily sacrifice in the temple, and either offered a pig on the altar or something, and it polluted the altar, and the Jews thought, oh no, this is terrible, okay? But Roland Rasmussen makes a great point in his book, this is one of the books that changed my mind over to post-trib, pre-wrath. He is right. Roland Rasmussen's got to be 80 years old, good friend of mine, and I spoke at his church, Faith Baptist Church in Canoga Park, California, many, many years ago. He said, Brother Hovind, let me give you my book. And he gave me this book, and I didn't read it. But as I was studying my Bible in prison, I realized, I have been taught something for 40 years that's not true, the pre-trib rapture. So I called home and said, would you please send that book in? So they sent it in, and I finally read it. I said, oh no, and I read it again, and I read it again, and I read it again. I said, he is right. I have been wrong in my thinking about end times. This whole pre-trib rapture idea was made up in 1830. And so I started reading all kinds of books on the pre-wrath rapture of the church. Not pre-trib, pre-wrath. I had been guilty of confusing tribulation and wrath. These books are excellent, by the way. Rosenthal and Roland Rasmussen, a good friend of mine. I preached at their church a couple times. Here's where the confusion comes. Everybody tries to say that this fourth kingdom is the Roman Empire. Here's what they're missing. The Roman Empire and the Roman Catholic Church started the religion of Islam. This book we sell in our bookstore. Anna, how much is this?
$7.
Huh?
$7.
$7. Excellent. Jack Chick died a couple years ago, a good friend of mine. Chick Publications. Very few Muslims realize their church, their religion was started by the Catholics. And this is an amazing study, okay? Worth the $7 to get that. So I'm not anti-Islam. I'm just for truth and against error. That's all. And we sell lots of books like Why I'm Not a Muslim by Peter Ruckman, who's rude, crude, crass, mean, and brilliant, okay? Okay. America's Trojan Horse by Don Boys. Do we sell this one?
No.
Don Boys, CST, Common Sense for Today, CSTnews.org, I think is his website. I had supper with Don a few weeks ago up in Tennessee. He also wrote several, we do sell one of his books. He gave us some. The God Haters. Here it is right here. Okay, I knew I had it. It's got a new title now, doesn't it? New cover page? That's it. The God Haters. Okay, and how much is this one? Don't know. Just go to our website, Dr. Dino, or call Anna. She'll say, hi, this is Anna. And you can say, how much is the God Haters book by Don Boys? He's a genius. He's up near Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I read the books by Joel Richardson. Excellent books on this topic. Islam, the Mideast Beast, the Islamic Antichrist. And so Muhammad's Monsters. I began reading and reading. While I was in prison, I read 1,800 books. I said, I want to know the truth. I just want to know what's right. I read from all different sides. I read the pre-trib books again. The Salem Curban, Jesus Comes Any Minute. We got 50 songs in our songbook. You know, it could happen in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye. Soon and very soon, I'm going to see the King. I've sung all those songs 100 times. I wish they were true. They're not, okay? The Coming Islamic Invasion, excellent book on what's coming. We are headed for trouble, folks. Holy Scriptures versus the Holy Quran. What are the differences between the two? Again, by Peter Ruckman. Excellent. Huh? $15. Okay, it's really good. Christ, Muhammad, and I. We sell this one. This guy was a former Muslim. See, everybody tries to say that the fourth kingdom mentioned here is the Roman Empire. And I believed that for a long time. And I finally had pointed out to me, Rome never conquered Babylon. They did for a few days or a few weeks, but it's not the Roman Empire, the fourth one. The legs of iron is Islam. And they are tied in with the Roman Catholic Church. And that's where people are missing it. The Catholic Church started Islam. Anyway, so he took away the daily sacrifice. Now here's the key. This cannot be Antiochus Epiphanes. Because Antiochus went in there, just desolated the temple, offered a pig on the altar or whatever he did. And the temple was desolate for 1,075 days, I think. 1,075 days. And then one of the guys went in there, the Maccabee brothers and family went in there and cleansed the temple. And they only had enough oil, according to the story, for the lamps to burn for one day. They said, what are we going to do? They're supposed to burn for 10 days. Light them anyway. Let's just trust God. And the lamps burned for 10 days, according to the story. And they still celebrate that today. It's one of the Jewish feasts that they have. Anybody know what it's called? Hanukkah. Hanukkah is the celebration of this daily sacrifice being put back into place in the temple. But this all happened back in 165 or 168 BC, before Christ. So if you get a Catholic Bible, you'll find some extra books in there called the Apocrypha. Two of them are called 1st and 2nd Maccabees. That's the story of the Maccabee brothers. But watch this now. The temple was desolate for 1,075 days. This is not referring to that time. This is, I'll show you, next couple verses. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint that spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice, and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? So these two guys are talking. He says, how long is the sanctuary going to be desolate? Somebody offered a sacrifice they weren't supposed to, killed a pig on the altar or whatever, okay? And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days. I said, bingo, this is not Antiochus Epiphanes. His was 1,075 days. This is still future. So I called Roland Rasmussen. I said, brother, you have hit the nail on the head here. You have discovered something I've been looking for 40 years. I believe you can still get his book, Faith Baptist Church, Canoga Park, California. 7644 Farallone Avenue. I preached there. Excellent church. And his charts and stuff are in the book, and I use some of the same concepts in my book because he is right. And it's not because I just believe everything I read. I mean, I read probably 300 books on this topic from all sides. Give them a chance to defend themselves. And I've got them all up here, all the pre-trib rapture books, and I used to believe that. I didn't get time to catch them all now before the Bible study, but yes, I've read that stuff, and I'm willing to listen. But in the middle of the 7-year period, the temple is desolated. I think everybody agrees with that. We'll see that in Daniel chapter 9 tomorrow. There is coming a time called the 70th week of Daniel. We'll get into that. This little yellow stripe is up here greatly expanded to become the 70th week of Daniel, representing a 7-year period. In the middle of that 7-year period, the temple is desolate. The Antichrist either offers a pagan altar, a sacrifice on the altar, or it sets up an image, like maybe an artificial intelligence, like, what's those 2 robots they got that talk now? Sophia and Alexa. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What could they have in 4 or 5 more years? Oh, no telling, right? Wow. Yeah, Avatar type stuff, okay? Anyway, I don't know. But the temple gets desolated in the middle of the 70th week. I think all sides agree on that. But how long is the temple desolate? 2,300 days. Well, the last half of 7 years is 1,260 days, 1260. See, half of 7 years is 3.5. Sometimes it's called 1,260 days. Sometimes it's called 3.5 years. Times and the dividing of a time. Sometimes it's called 42 months. 42 months is also 3.5 years. But if the temple is desolate for 2,300 days, that runs past the end of the 3.5 years. So the temple is desolate. 3.5 years later, we're raptured out. 1,040 days after that, Jesus comes back and fixes the problem with the temple. So this is the time of God's wrath. 1,040 days, a little less than 3 years. And all of a sudden, verses all through the Bible began going click, 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 click in my mind. It's like you're turning a combination lock and all the tumblers fall into place. I said, whoa, Brother Rasmussen was right. The church has always taught we're going to be here for the tribulation. Until 1830, when a Scottish 15-year-old girl got sick with a fever and had a dream and said, oh, we get raptured out before the tribulation. And that's where it started. Wow. And ever since I started teaching that, other people said, oh, no, we taught the pre-trib rapture. They did not. You cannot find anybody who taught the pre-tribulation rapture. They taught pre-wrath, and the pre-wrath is true. It's post-trib, pre-wrath rapture. And we're going to be here. What on earth is about to happen? We're about to head into trouble. Now think about it. If I was the devil, I would want all the Christians to believe, oh, you're going to get out of here before the trouble starts. Because then when it doesn't happen and trouble starts, what are they going to do? They're going to think, I wonder what else that preacher lied to me about. Mm-hmm. I quit. Right. That's true. Right? There's going to be a great falling away. The great falling away happens for 3.5 years when people realize, wow, I got lied to. And you did. And in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 2, it says, the day of Christ cannot come until there's a great falling away and the man of sin is revealed. When is the man of sin revealed? In the middle of the tribulation. Mm-hmm. When he sets up that image in the temple, that's when the Christians and the Jews realize, oh no, this is not the Christ. Right. He's the bad guy. Yes. Before that, they're going to think he's a good guy. They're probably going to think he's the Christ. The book on the Islamic, where is that one? That one I just had here. The Islamic Antichrist. They are already, the Muslims are already looking for a guy. They've already got descriptions of him, and they say he's going to make a treaty with the Jews either for 7, 13, or 19 years. Well, we know it's going to be 7. But you should read some of the stuff I read till my brain hurt on the topic. We're going to be here. And this is how it happened. There's a 7-year period in the middle. the treaty's broken, but then the temple is desolate for 2,300 days. That runs right on past 1,040.
They refer to him as the Dajjal, I think? Yeah.
Yes. I cover all that in my book. They're waiting for him to come, and they're going to follow him. And they try to when they pray, you know, they put their head on the ground, and they push extra hard if they can, because they're trying to make a spot in their forehead of no circulation. You push down to cut the circulation off, and you do that over and over 5 times a day, they pray, you're supposed to. And after years and years of that, it gets a dark spot in their forehead.
That's how they get that?
And so they think having a spot in your forehead is wonderful. That's a holy man. Wow, he prays a lot. And they're already being taught in their books that their Christ is going to come and require them to get a mark in their forehead, and they're going to line up to get that microchip, if it's a microchip or something. Please put one right here. They can't wait. That's a sign of dedication to who they think is going to be their Christ. So on my chart here, who are they waiting for? The Christians are waiting for Christ. The Jews are waiting for the Messiah. They don't realize he came already, and he's coming back. The Buddhists are waiting for the 5th Buddha to come straighten out this mess. The Muslims are waiting for the 12th Imam, Mahdi, going to ride on a black horse. The Hindus are waiting for Krishna. The Theosophists are waiting for Lord Maitre. Everybody's looking for somebody to come straighten out this mess. And so the charts that we have on this, I tried to pack as much information on there as I could get. That was a result of, after all my study, I said, I've been wrong. I'm sorry. We're here for the tribulation. Okay, so this chart is from Roland Rasmussen's book. There's a 7-year period, and then in the middle the treaty's broken and the temple is desolate for 2,300 days. It runs right past the time of the rapture. We're taken up out of here at the end of the 7 years. Then there's about 3 more years when there are 7 trumpet judgments and 7 vial judgments. We'll see later in this study, Jesus' disciples asked him very clearly in Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, Lord, when are you coming? And what's the sign we should watch for? And he tells them. And then he says in verse 28 or 9 in the Matthew 24 passage, after the tribulation, the sun and the moon are going to go dark.
Yep.
Well, I think everybody's going to see that. Sun and the moon go dark. What kind of strange weather we're having, you know. And then he's going to blow the trumpet and catch up his elect. And that happens when the 6th, you can read Revelation chapter 6, verse 12. It says, when he opened the 6th seal, the sun and the moon went dark. I was taught, we get raptured out in Revelation 4:1, you know, when the Lord says, come up hither. He was calling John up hither to see the future, but it's not representing the rapture. The rapture takes place in Revelation 6:12 when the sun and the moon go dark. They're all listed right on here. Sun and the moon go dark. They're all on the chart. Look them all up. 10 times in the Bible. The Bible says in Acts 2:20 that the sun and the moon go dark before the great and terrible day of the Lord. Same thing in Joel chapter 2 and chapter 3. Well, if the sun and the moon go dark before the day of the Lord, and the sun and the moon go dark after the tribulation, and we get raptured out when the sun and the moon go dark, I mean, it's like, hello, it's a no-brainer. We get raptured out after the tribulation before the day of the Lord starts. And then I began realizing, man, that day of the Lord is where the confusion is. The day of the Lord has 2 parts to it. There's a 7-year period, and we're here for that. We get raptured out. The day of the Lord, this 1,000-year period, has a time of wrath and a time of blessing. So I went through and read, there's got to be 200 verses in the Bible about the day of the Lord. We'll get into that in this series when we get into part 5. What is this day of the Lord? Well, there are 5 parts to it, A, B, C, D, and E. First thing he does, he calls 144,000 Jews. Okay, my Christians are gone now. I still need somebody witnessing down on the earth. And they're going to look on him whom they pierced and get converted in one day. They're going to see Jesus come down, call us up to the clouds. They're going to say, wow, that was the Messiah. We missed him. Oh, no. And those 144,000 will be witnessing for the Lord during that whole time of God's wrath. And at the end, when Jesus comes back with us this time to touch down on the Mount of Olives, here he only comes to the clouds, catches us up. When he comes back to touch down on the Mount of Olives and fights the battle of Armageddon, the Jews, 144,000 of them, all of them are still alive. God protected them all through the whole thing. but it's going to be really bad on planet Earth for about 3 years. 7 trumpets and 7 vials poured out. And each one, you can read about it in Revelation. A whole bunch of people die every time one of those happens. Okay, so we'll get into all that. Right now, we're back on part 3, Daniel's vision. So back in verse 15. And it came to pass, when I, even Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then, behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man, and I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid, and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O Son of Man, small s. Jesus is the capital S, Son of Man. Okay. Understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. He says, Daniel, this is going to happen at the time of the end. This did not already happen with the fall of the Roman Empire or the Romans conquering Israel in 70 AD or Antiochus Epiphanes offering a pig on the altar. It's at the time of the end. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. Indignation is when you get indignant with somebody, you're angry or upset. For at the time appointed, the end shall be. The ram which thou sawest, having 2 horns, are the kings of Media and Persia. Simple enough. He's explaining the vision. The rough goat is the king of Grecia. That would be Alexander the Great. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king, which would be Alexander the Great. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. And sure enough, the 4 divisions of Alexander's kingdom were not as great as his kingdom was. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. I think that means he's going to be satanically motivated. He has power, but it's not coming from him. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. Most people think that is witchcraft. And he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. Now, if you read Revelation 6, the one guy comes in riding on the horse, and he's got a bow, but no arrows. See, I'm unarmed, got the bow, no arrows, peace, peace. This is going to be the Antichrist comes in and offers peace. Hey, let's have peace, everybody. People say, the Muslims want peace. Yeah, they want a piece of America, a piece of South America, they want a piece of Egypt, a piece of Europe, they want all the pieces, okay? And he shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. All of a sudden, he's broken. Heart attack or something, nobody has to touch him. And the vision of the evening and the morning which is told is true, wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. And I, Daniel, fainted, and I was sick certain days. Afterward I arose and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. And probably to this day there are some parts of the Bible that nobody understands. Now, if I was God, I would write the book so that you could read it and study it for a lifetime and still marvel at it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Most books, you can read them, and after a couple times reading it, I go, okay, I got it, understand. I've been reading that Bible 49 years, and I still marvel at it, like, wow. How did I miss that? Or wow, that was there all along? Who'd have thunk it, you know? Daniel chapter 8. He saw this vision, and I think there's a lot of confusion over this. And in my book, I lined up at the chart at the back. And do we have a small version of the chart in here, Anna? Yeah, right here, the timeline. We have the verses from Daniel chapter 7 lined up in parallel. Daniel chapter 8. Daniel chapter 8 again. Daniel chapter 9, chapter 11, chapter 12, color-coded with the different events and the sequence are going to happen. Then Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Now we have a different color code in the book. It's the same verses, same columns, but the same concept. Here is Daniel chapter 7, Daniel chapter 8, It's always in the same order. We're here for the tribulation, and we're raptured out before the wrath of God falls. So if you want to study the end, I would suggest you get the chart and the book and really read through that and follow along with our video series. I just want to know the truth, okay? If I'm wrong, I'll change it. I wish I could tell everybody, oh, something good is about to happen to you, because then people would send in millions of dollars and build me a mansion and buy me a Cadillac and all that stuff. They don't want to hear, look, you might get killed for your faith. People don't want to hear that.
People are getting killed for their faith now.
Yeah. They'd rather hear, tickle my ears, tell me something I want to hear. Oh, it's going to be fine. Oh, thank you. You want to go to the doctor when you're dying of some kind of disease, and he says, oh, you're fine. Okay, here's $100. Thank you, doctor.
Right.
No, tell me the truth.
Right.
All I can do is tell you what I think is the truth about what's coming, folks. We're headed for trouble. And we are very not ready for it.
It's coming fast.
Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we're headed for trouble. Daniel saw the vision. He got sick, fainted. Said, Lord, I don't understand. Well, chapter 9, he has another vision. We'll talk about that tomorrow night.